Hey there, welcome to this week's edition of Bulls versus Bears, NPC Markets weekly podcast, where market news meets actionable investing. Welcome, Kai Chen. It's been a while, Kai.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Me and JT, you were sort of saying,
Oh, that's
you
right.
were on the
I've been,
yacht for a
well,
couple of
yeah,
weeks.
I missed a couple of weeks, but you and I haven't been on for a while, so yeah, we essentially I had to drag you back in this week because. Yeah, there's a few tech issues that we need to. When I say issues, I mean investing themes that we need to have
Mm.
we need to have a bit of a chat about as we look into into 2026. We've been all writing the market outlook this week. It's quite a decent sized job. I think we're up to about 20, 30 pages at the moment,
Mm.
or thereabouts. So and very much trying to to keep it to a minimum, but some really solid ideas in there, and we'll have a webinar on that mid-January. So oh look, there you are. There's your pretty face, mate, and. EP97. So hilariously, we're going to finish on EP99 for this year. So episode 100 will be our first one back in January. But yeah, I've got to say, much more professional at EP97 than we were back in the day. But yeah, rate cut hopes really have been the hopium of this week.
Hmm.
Essentially, we've had the White House is apparently cancelling interviews with many of the Fed chair candidates, which is leading everyone to believe that Kevin Hassett's going to be the new Fed chair come May. He is massively dovish. Just a quick explainer: dovish means more inclined to ease rates. Hawkish means more inclined to raise rates, or a touch more conservative. But yeah, it's just been really almost 2 weeks of the same news story, rotating over that quiet Thanksgiving period, and then I think the rate cut expectations for next week are around about 90% now, up from based on one or two comments essentially versus a dozen comments against, but the market does what the market does. So,
Kind
but
of, it's really saved the market, hasn't it? Because I remember it was
mm,
like what two weeks ago we were like in extreme fear, and it was about to break the
we got down to
8,500
eight.
mark. Yeah, I
We got
know.
down to eight in the like. I mean, and look, if the ASX had a fear and greed, we'd have been negative. So I think they don't have the extreme greed on the ASX. They've got a separate section for just being a wuss essentially. Um, but one other story that sort of was trickle feeding out this week, and a very good excuse to give ourselves a pat on the back was, there's a fair few news reports coming out now that there's active work on a national robotics strategy or AI robotics strategy. Um, so there, a bunch of federal agencies, transportation, manufacturing, etc., are preparing their it's just task forces here. I thought only the FBI and stuff did task forces, but working groups haven't been formally unveiled, but there's a lot of chatter, and I think it's just one of those areas basically that I we saw the value, and I didn't. I've got to say I didn't really think it. I thought it'd be something that the private markets would lead, from an efficiency standpoint. But government's now regarding it very like if 2025 has taught us anything, um, you know, if it's a race against China, Trump will throw money at it, or at least announce throwing money at it. So we already liked it. But, just look at that compounded annual growth rate estimated. We're talking like 2032. It's close to 100 bill total addressable market, but I think the applications really, if you include self-driving cars and cyber cabs and things, I think that it's a hell of a lot more. I think this is just more automated robotics, logistics robotics, and I don't think this really would even include the humanoid robots. Um, uh, so yeah, it's really it's one of the quotable quotes here. Robotics is no longer a niche tech story; it's becoming politically backed engine room of the next productivity cycle. And where likely AI will actually monetize as well.
The governments in some way, right? Because it's really where it meets the regulatory constraints. Because, like say, for example, you've got cars, robotic cars, and they go, well, we're not allowing that on the streets. Even if you had that developed, you couldn't actually put that into commercial use. So I think it's good that at least the federal agencies are actually recognizing some of this, and it might actually lead towards something that's, rolls out the robo taxis.
Well, that'd be very good for Tesla, and I am. It's no secret that I'm bullish Tesla. And I embrace everyone hating on Elon because it means we get slightly cheaper stock prices. Um, yeah, but just a quick summary on the major indices this week. Sorry, the last 5 days. Look, no weekly. I mean, there's no weekly move out beyond 1.8%. So. Very quiet week. Importantly, a lot of these technicals have stabilised now on more so the daily and the weekly. So we got into sell territory for all of the US indices on the daily, just leading in when it was at the 20% chance of the rate cut, and that swing has really pulled it around. We've got personal consumption and expenditure, which is the Fed's preferred. Inflation figure tonight at 12:30 a.m. Or Saturday morning. So, if that shows inflation, we could see a pretty sharp sell-off. And it's expected at 0.2 for the month. I'm not entirely sure actually. I might double check in a second. I dare say that's probably it'd be October's numbers. I would imagine. I think we've already had one. So. But we really need to, we really need to be careful because I think they've put about I think the Russell's put on nearly 10% on rate cut hopes in 10 days. So, what the interest rate gods giveth, the interest gods can take away. It would be a pretty sharp pullback, I would imagine, particularly with a few. As you can sort of see, I mean, this is the ASX here, but tech not doing great. ResMed drifted, but was up today. This is as of Thursday. But copper has had a great week, and we'll talk about that later in the week, later in the podcast. But that's why BHP and Rio have been up. I think a bit of positivity in coal as well. Whitehaven's up about 8% today. Next DC was up. I can't find it on the market map there, but it was up because it's announced a deal with OpenAI. We were having a few discussions in the office today. Like, I'd rather be doing deals with Grok and Gemini and Google than OpenAI because I think the market's starting to turn on Sam Altman a bit, isn't it? Isn't it?
It's probably the least liked CEO of a AI company. I mean, you got Elon leading Grok. You've got Demis Hassabis who's leading Google Gemini, right? So he's actually I like Demis Hassabis. Google Gemini basically is developed by DeepMind, which they built the AlphaGo and the AlphaFold AI behind those. So beat the world champion.
Just explain some context there. Like, I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard the story about when IBM took on Kasparov, right? There was books written about it, etc. But like the Go is a Asian game basically but the possibilities are infinitely more, and they beat the world champion, right?
It's because chess is a solvable game, right? Just to give you a little bit more context, a chessboard is 8 by 8 sides. So basically, the number of possible ways that you can move, it's a small number set, right? So you times 8 factorial. But if you have 100 rows and 100 columns on the board, you literally you can never compute that, even if you had like the whole universe as compute power, right? So something that you can't brute force, and it's like it's actually amazing, and props to human ingenuity, where it's like your brain, you can actually figure out patterns on what's the optimal moves. And basically, this board game was played 3,000 years in Asia, like in China, Japan,
And the
Korea.
grandmasters were revered. Like chess was a bit of a
Oh
look. It
yeah.
was a bit of a. It was a kids' game, right?
Oh, they're
Um,
like superstars. Like these guys go to like monasteries or whatever you call them. Like it's like you train literally your whole life. So this guy Lisa Dole, he was groomed to be the Go master. But yeah, basically AlphaGo came along, and he was a little bit cocky, and he was like, oh, it's one of these AI bots or whatever. No worries. First game got defeated, unfazed. Is like, no, just got lucky. I'll come back. Two more sets in, he's like, this is a completely different beast because it learns like humans, right? So it's not computing what's the next best move. It's like, I played 100,000 games. What's the best move next, right? So and it learns from that. It's how humans learn. So
well, and
super interesting.
it remembers a fair bit. Which I
Yeah.
mean, that went madly off topic for next DC, but to obviously, that much broader context means like Elon's a genius. He's the Thomas Edison of our age. You got a bloke who's invented a platform that's been worked on for probably 20 years, right? That's won a contest against human beings, like, and then you got Sam Altman, a bloke who is a borderline scam artist who stole open source, told everyone it was going to be open source, and then decided to take it for himself and IPO it. So that's like I'm backing the Grandmasters versus the Gypsy Con Man, personally, but he and I think as well there's been really strong numbers, and we had a look at this a couple of weeks ago, but there was something on Twitter as well, or X.com. They're very like this week, basically saying people are abandoning ChatGPT en masse. And then all of a sudden I started saying, oh no, but GPT-6 is going to be amazing. And yeah, basically, like again, I would really, I think I'd be silly to back, even if I don't like the guy, for whatever reason. But that even aside, I'm always gonna back the people with the proven track records, and I think that's where this AI rally could get picked apart a little bit at the seams. I don't think in the long run it makes any difference at all if OpenAI falls over. It will for SoftBank, because they'll end up giving back all the money they made on bloody Nvidia. But look, if they're not going to be the best, I mean, or say if, like Microsoft walks away, and then say, then all of a sudden they're in trouble. They've got a bunch of debt as well, and then if they walk away, I mean, Jensen's best mates with Elon. Like all of a sudden he takes back his chips, and the spiral continues. Like what you got to remember is markets will. I mean, look at what happened with Elon. Like, all the guy literally tried to do was go in with Doge, and I mean, look, don't get me wrong, he does things in a very dickish way, but he was just trying to save the government money because it was excess spending, and because he knew that the debt needed to be fixed. And then he left because Trump basically blew up all his hard work, by giving it all back in tax cuts to the rich. But the people were burning Teslas on the street in France. Their sales haven't recovered at all, in Europe. Like they're still spiraling. I mean, once sentiment turns on you, in financial markets, like you very quickly find out, you're in a room full of friends, and then all of a sudden you turn around and go, where'd everyone go? and then you're standing there with the barbell. So it like, and Finn brought up a really interesting point. The crypto guy was also a Sam, and I think also got on the front page of Time
Sigmund Freud.
magazine.
Yeah.
And that's getting on the front of that or that Forbes or Time magazine or whatever it is, that man or woman of the year thing, is is a curse quite often, because I think they've had, I think something like 7 in the last 30 years have gone to jail or done time or so, or bankrupted or whatever. So it pretty high hit rate. But yeah, but Tesla drifted higher this week. Wasn't really on much. Salesforce had good earnings, and they said there was stronger enterprise demand for their AI software, which it's been a long time waiting for that. Um, Eli Lilly, I think, there was some drug announcement. It wasn't really major, but truth be told, like, the ones that are darker green are because they were probably red last week, and vice versa. There wasn't a lot really to be to write home about, and the banks were just up because interest rates are going to be down. So, but mate, quantum computing, like, I'm going to just let you can take it away from here, because my my brain's been hurting all week having you trying to explain this to me. But take it away, mate, because I mean, and what's the impact on the what could be the potential impact on AI if quantum computing gets going?
The start, and what is it, and at a very simple level, you got to compare it to classical compute. So the PC that we're looking at now, all the transistors, they're one zeros, right? And if they're logical gates, it's either
Well,
on
they're
or
so
off.
1 or 0, or on or off, yeah.
On or off, right? And that's all your CPU is doing. So that all that processing power, it does a lot of different complex operations, but at the core of it, this is all it is, right? So it's they call it bytes. Now, with quantum computing, it's completely different in how it derives that, right? So imagine you've got ones and zeros, but it can be anywhere in between. So instead of being at one or at a zero, you can be anywhere between. So it's like a probability scale, right? So you're
So
like,
it can be
it's
kind of on and kind of off.
yes,
So almost like
exactly
a
right.
light switch dimmer.
Exactly right. You're exactly right. So
Yeah.
it goes on a scale, and it's like a it's like a likelihood of it being on or off, which is quite interesting because you can get a lot of things that that works out in this compute space. So to give you an example, if you combine a lot of these quantum qubits together, it's like, what's the chances of it raining tomorrow? And you get all these answers that come through. But the cool thing is actually, like, you'll get a probability of what is the most likely outcome, or the chance, as an example in that. But the issue that basically we were having a lot is that these computers have been around for, like, a decade or two, in its current form.
Mm.
But the biggest problem that they had was that it was so error prone, and what they needed to do these compute, like, I don't know if you've seen, there might be a picture on the next slide, but essentially, like, it's this awesome chandelier thing. Like, if you have a look, that all
Yeah, we
these
got
things
it
are like,
there.
yeah. So like, imagine all these little pipes. That's where the qubit comes down. It's like a water flowing through, but you need it to be perfectly still, no noise, and no heat, right? Because if there's any heat, it destroys the information. So that's been a bit of the challenge in trying to actually keep the technology working. But it produced a lot of errors. So maybe say maybe like 2 or 3 qubits out of 100 made an error prediction. And when we're talking about scaled up in millions of calculations, that's going to cause a huge problem. But where the point I'm trying to make is that right at this moment, what's happening is that Google is focusing on error correction. So the chips that they're releasing, they call it logical qubits. So basically, they bunch a lot of qubits together. They have they can cancel out the error predictions, so the self-correcting mechanism. So now the error rate on all these new logical processors for quantum computing is actually fairly good, right? We're at a breaking point where it might become commercially viable. And so, over the next 2, 3 years, what will happen is we're likely to see, as with all computing things, Moore's law, it gets more efficient, we get more power and etc. So, we're
So
at that,
just
yeah.
for context as well, Moore's law isn't just the law of there being more. It was an actual guy called Moore,
Mm.
and it was just and it's a calculation of the exponential demand for processing power and compute really
I think it was
at
like
its
the
core. And
process. I think it was like every 3 years, the processing power doubles, right? So
yeah,
that's like every two
and we
years,
and we've
consistent.
we have had periods where it's gone faster and then it's gone slower, but it was kind of interesting. I read a book called Chip Wars, and I think the guy he's still alive. So, when you talk about those Moore's laws and things like that, usually the usually the bloke died 100 years ago. But these guys, they're old school. They're the first semiconductor makers, basically. And that was just it was a bit of a theory, and he was laughed at when he came up with it,
Mm.
like properly laughed at. But he was sort of proven to be right. So yeah, what would be the impact on? So you were saying crypto,
Yeah.
like definitely for cryptology, and like it would code break and it would beat cybersecurity for would be fairly useless unless
Think
well
about it
sorry
this way. Think about it this
regular
way, right?
encryption today would be useless.
Yeah, so think about it today, right? Like in the example of you're trying to break into some encryption. You got this hash code or this security thing, and imagine if you had to do every single calculation to try to break this code. These algorithms are designed not to be crackable by brute force, right? Because it would take you 100 billion years to actually do that
Yeah.
on classical compute. It's not possible. However, with quantum computing, because it's probabilistic in terms of how it derives the results, this thing could crack it, right? So basically, as it
And
gets more
it still
powerful,
might take
mm,
50 billion years, but it also could do it in a year.
uh,
Like
it
it's
depends on
not
how much
it's
power
not
you
a
have.
no, it's
Yeah.
not a defined timeline, right? Like because it narrows. It would depend on the encryption, and but it would narrow the probabilities a lot faster. And that's one thing I've always said about the way the human brain works versus like, I've got an issue with it being called the current version of AI being called intelligence is that
Mm,
it's still kind of brute forcey. But where the advantage of a human being is like
exactly right.
it's called parallel thinking, where basically we can be thinking about a topic that's going to an end goal, but the brain eliminates a bunch of garbage we don't need,
Yes.
and then we can also pick different threads from different trains of thought and bring them together into one concise argument. Look, and I'm not doing a great way. My parallel thinking
Uh,
is on the blink right now. I'm not explaining it very well, but what all a computer can do at the moment in
mm.
classical computers, ones and zeros in a straight line. Um,
You are
you know,
100% correct, and this is why I really like the Google Deep Minds team, right? And that's you pinpointed it exactly because intelligence is not about like brute force where you go, I'm going to search, I'm going to do every single calculation, and I'm going to pick the best option, right? And
mm,
that's not how human minds work. But your human mind actually, it's seen enough examples where it can actually approximate very well. So it can go, oh, I've seen actually like if I do this, roughly it will result in this. So you'll narrow down to maybe like a couple options where you can pick from. And that's because you learn in the past from the experience that this
mm.
is the best thing to do. And
One
and
one of the
that's
one of
actually,
the
yeah.
one of the simplest examples because I was developing some software many eons ago, Prime IA, which you were kind of half involved in, and it was more about human assist via
Mm,
using brute force compute to help a human get results faster, which is intelligence amplification, or IA, ironically. But and it was saying that one of the simplest examples is like you can always see your nose, but yet your brain
Mm.
phases it out. Like so,
Yeah.
then and when and your peripheral vision as well, when you catch something in your eye or what in the corner of your eye, basically it's not that you caught it in the corner of your eye. Your brain's actually going, that's abnormal. Um,
Oh,
and it was
it's like
normal, and it
noise
was normally,
cancellation.
yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
your eyes do, your eyes are in a very efficient, yeah, noise canceller. I mean, bad example, but you know what I mean. But and that's, I guess, what. So you need less brute force if quantum does what the human brain does and eliminates a bunch
Yes.
of possibilities. And look, this isn't
Yes.
supposed to be a tech thing, but look, this is an investing theme that if this sort of compute can will make a lot of chips not obsolete, but you know, Nvidia ain't going to be the big dog on the block anymore. It'll be the and I don't want to call it. To give an extreme example, if this goes commercial, Nvidia becomes like the fastest horse and cart, as opposed to the newest technology in cars. You know what I mean? But it's. I mean, you're not going to put one of those in your house either. Like
So,
but for bigger, where Nvidia's selling all these chips and sucking all this power and blah blah blah. They're not going to sell as many because at the moment that's the best option. If they get this right, this will be the best option.
to be honest, I still do think from true commercialization, it's a couple of years away, right? So because if
Possibly at least. I think I've heard
yeah.
it's 2 years away for 8 years straight.
Yeah,
So
because you need all the software as well because like everything is written on classical compute. Even if they could produce the hardware that was really good, it takes time because it's like it take a couple of years to write the base software to do all the programming and then
mhm.
actually to implement all that. So yeah, it's but you're going to get that rush early. It's like going back to the miner example, the Lassonde curve, right? And it's basically like, once that technology first comes up, man, there will be a rush. And the same with
Yeah,
AI, yeah. So, but it's
and the
not
same with
mature
the
yet.
tech bubble. Like investors go ballistic for stuff way too
Mm,
early all the time. But it doesn't mean it's not, you can't make money out of that.
yeah.
But it's just a little bit of broader context, basically, just for, just because, and look, even like the GPU versus TPU example, like the GPU is a great all rounder, whereas a TPU is is like a production line, basically, a bunch of individual tools along a production line doing the same job as what a GPU would do at the end case, but it uses a lot less power, like and a lot less compute, because it's using different chips along the way that do specific jobs. Be like, and that was an example I saw because I've been struggling to find an example of it. Whereas, like, you know, if you got the smartest guy in the world who's the best engineer in the world to build a car, like it might be the most beautiful car in the world eventually, but there's a reason we've got production lines, right? Like it's efficiency, and like this year is going to be coming up as we've been going through this market outlook is like AI is going to hit a wall this year, and it's going to be power, and that efficiency in compute, which, and we I might have to fact check this, and you might know, but
Mm.
I believe that Google doesn't buy Nvidia chips.
So
Um,
they use so TPUs are actually originally created by Google, right? So it's Google's architecture, and what TPU stands for is Tensor Processing Unit. And actually, I was just thinking about an analogy then, right? Like GPUs are like, you got the multi-purpose tool where you can change
yeah,
drill bits, you can change all these things. The Tensor Process Unit, like it's just a screwdriver. Like it does one thing, and that's all it does, right? So
but then it
these
goes to
things
the next.
power.
It goes to the
Mm.
next tool, like you know.
Yeah,
So
correct. So
it's
they're very specialized units.
you use a series of TPUs to do a task, whereas a
Yeah.
GPU can do the whole task.
Yeah, it's very generic in terms of yeah, because GPU, the background is obviously it's used for gaming. So it's
Yeah,
got massive processing power, and it can do a lot of things. But yeah, TPUs are much more specific just to machine learning and basically AI. So
Yeah, so I mean, look, you kind of need to know this stuff, and the reason we stumble around analogies and things is like the sooner everyone understands this stuff, and I'm gonna be upfront with everyone, all the listeners out there. If I don't have Kai, I'm like no chance. And look, we've worked together for well over a decade. He's been my go-to guy for tech things, and I used to be good at tech, but now I'm in my late 40s. Like, there's only so long you can cling on to being up to date, and I think I probably lost it a few years ago. Maybe before that, who knows? But I still get the broad concepts. But this is like things are moving. I don't think I've ever seen technology move so fast. Like, the speed at which the technology is moving at the moment makes the tech bubble look like a glacier, and it's and I think you need to understand these concepts because and I don't think the market understands because like I've done the call before like recently where this TPU thing with Google is very, very important, and couple that with Gemini getting rave reviews, etc. Like it just shows yet another alternative to Nvidia, which is and I'm not crapping on Nvidia, which is expensive, but also has a 95% dominance of the market. Like never in history is that sort of monopoly, close to monopoly ever lasted when there's been that much margin in it. People will find a way, and like Google's been working on this stuff for ages, and it's not, I think Jensen's been very clever in getting the ecosystem and making the customers sticky, and he cited the example of Cisco back in the tech bubble and said, we don't want to be another Cisco. I think he's achieved that. But I certainly don't think Nvidia can double quickly from here. Certainly not like, it's probably once in 100-year or once in 50-year advantage that they had, and like it's just not going to happen again. Like, and I reckon even Jensen would admit to that. But where if you don't have this broader context to it, you can't really weigh up, forward, because it was Mark Morland particularly. He's going, Nvidia is it's gonna go to 10 trillion like within 2 years and blah 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 blah, and he's quoting all these compounded annual growth rates, and I'm going, well, that's if nothing changes. And because he's 100%, that's the hard thing. He's like, yes, he was 100% right, but that was on the assumption that TPUs don't exist, that someone doesn't build a chipset, like, or et cetera, et cetera. So, it's a difficult game in financial markets when people can throw. We were laughing about total addressable markets the other day, so people make that up. I mean, it's a best guess. Like total addressable markets are a best guess. We use them all the time, but it's like seriously, it is not a. What you need is you want to be able to see compounded annual growth rates and try to calculate them, and they're very much an example because no one can predict the future. So. As much as they say they can, but so everyone should be very wary when they see the word TAM. As the Pro Medicus CEO gave us a wonderful example where he said the total addressable market was the whole world, and that was it's at the extreme end of showing you that technically he's right. But possibly not the smartest thing from a risk management point of view to say. Okay, we're going to kick off with commodities and FX. Again, we had some small technical issues there. Essentially, the lesson is don't leave me in charge of a computer. But yeah, so we were briefly talking about copper, silver, and uranium, basically being the three things that only things that rallied. And I think when we recorded before, I was basically saying that whenever the sentiment gets too high and the conspiracy theory nuts come out in silver, That's usually when silver has a bit of a rest, so I don't expect it to continue next week. But it has distracted the market from this great move in copper, up 4%. But copper's just been grinding higher really nicely for weeks and weeks now. Record highs on the LME, the London market, and back up above, I think, probably the highest point we've had in the US outside of when Trump announced those stupid tariffs off the cuff as well. So uranium, just one of those hot thematics. Yeah, we were sort of saying that it's as well. Where Kai you were mentioning, there's been, but when copper prices are getting high because people start stealing stuff.
So some mum was cutting the copper pipes at schools to sell them. That's what you said. No, it's a bit desperate.
That's a different kind of school fate, isn't it? Go back, maybe she should just go do what normal mums do and just do a bake sale. But yeah, no, there was a stupid video recently where a bloke in a balaclava and a fireman's axe taking those huge copper tubes off one of the Tesla superchargers as well. So yeah, but look, I mean, we'll quickly skip through fear and greed. Fear we've drifted back up to fear. We're in extreme fear for the last couple of weeks. Vol's been really low. It's actually been quite challenging getting the morning report done, and one of the reasons why we're doing these, like the quantum computing thing today, is why we're doing these sort of deep dives and getting a bit of context on the thematics, and so people understand the background of it while the market's quiet, instead of doing what everyone else does and just making crap up or recycling, a rate cut story like the mainstream media are at the moment. I mean, it's until something knocks that off. Every morning I've been coming in for a week, and it's the same story from last Monday. So yeah, but these are great times of year, and it's generally when, I don't know, with you, Kyle, as well, like kind of get to. We've been writing the outlook all week. We kind of you get to stop and think when the market gets a little bit quiet. Because it's been a volatile year.
So low. Yeah, and we thought it would kick off, but had a bit of a false start, I think, 2 weeks ago. So
yeah, look, and to be honest, our outlook last year. I think we've run it through all the AIs and said, give us a mark, and the general mark is we got a couple wrong. Well, a couple were up for debate, and one was definitely wrong. It was around oil, but I wouldn't call myself an oil trader. But we got 11 or 12 right. So but I mean, one thing I will say is that I never made comment on. I thought it would be about flat for the year, despite Junbei calling me ridiculous when I did the last call last year. But I said we'd probably be around about up 2 or 3% by way of down 20, and that's kind of where the ASX is going to end up. There's no way on God's green earth I would have picked this rally out of the lows in April. Like that blown me away. Like I've never seen anything like it. So yeah, we'll add one more to the wrong column, but it would have been. I can't scenario plan everything else out, but that should be coming out in the next week. It'll be available on Mosaic only, so it's free to sign up to Mosaic, and it's free to stay on it. But if you want to get the new Outlook, and it's pretty long, but it's pretty good, and the boys, everyone's chipped in this time, not just me writing it. You'll have to download the app, and then you can get it from there. And then the webinar will be early to mid January. So I think the 17th we've got it booked in for, but I'm not 100% on that. So, but you'll automatically get an invite to that anyway. So yeah, as I said, sign up for a free trial. Bullish or bearish next week, Kai?
So I think it's going to go up, just because the default is up. Yeah. So unless something comes out and catches it off guard, I think just keep grinding.
I'm going to stick to me guns, and I'm going to go. There's going to be no cut next week. PCE will be mildly inflationary tonight, and then we're going to get a bit of a rug pull. So I'm going to go 3-star bear, like 5-star bear, bang Armageddon. But yeah. So but you know, if I was a betting man, I know you were at much shorter odds than I am. Let me put it that way. Yeah, but go to mosaic.npcmarkets.com.au, email Kai or myself, or go to our website. Pretty easy to find. The whole everything points towards Mosaic now. So get your free thing, get your free login, and we will give you all of our recommendation services, all 4 of them, plus structured products and premium content for the first month, so you can actually take it for a proper test drive. But thanks Kai for your very educational and well, to be honest, thanks for bringing some intelligence to the show. I'm sorry that
artificial.
Dad joke. Not to say that it's more me dragging you and JT down. But yeah, but we'll be next week. It'll be the 12th. No, it'll be the second last episode, I would say. And then the 100th episode in the new year. But have a great weekend, folks. Have a great week, and we'll speak again. Thanks, Kai, and we'll speak again next week.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.